There is something about Gemini that people sense before they can explain. You might have noticed it in yourself or in the Geminis around you. A quickness of thought, a sharp awareness, a mind that never truly stops observing, connecting, analyzing. Gemini doesn't just think differently, Gemini experiences reality differently. And that mental difference is not random. It's not a personality quirk. It's something deeply structural, something that shapes how Gemini sees the world, people, emotions, and even themselves. Before we go deeper, take a moment to notice something. As you're listening to this, your mind is probably already jumping ahead. Before we go any further, pause for just a second. If you are a Gemini, or if you have Gemini placements, there's a high chance your mind is already anticipating what comes next. You're not just listening passively. You're predicting, analyzing, filling the gaps, questioning where this is going. That alone already reveals something important. Gemini doesn't simply receive information. Gemini interacts with it in real time. This mental difference begins with perception. Gemini doesn't experience the world in a linear way. While many signs focus deeply on one thing at a time, Gemini's mind operates like a network. Thoughts connect to other thoughts, ideas branch out into possibilities, observations turn into interpretations instantly. This is why Gemini often seems mentally ahead of conversations, situations, and even emotional exchanges. It's not arrogance, it's speed. It's awareness. It's a mind that is constantly mapping reality from multiple angles at once. Mercury, Gemini's ruling planet, plays a central role here, but not in the simplistic way astrology is often explained. Mercury doesn't just make Gemini good at communication. It makes Gemini mentally restless, curious, alert, and constantly scanning for meaning. Gemini is not satisfied with surface-level explanations. Even when they appear casual, light-hearted, or distracted, there is a deeper process happening underneath. They are decoding people, reading between lines, noticing inconsistencies, picking up subtle changes in tone, energy, and behavior that others miss entirely. This is one of the reasons Gemini can feel misunderstood. From the outside, people may see inconsistency. Inside, Gemini experiences constant internal dialogue. Multiple perspectives coexist at the same time. Gemini can understand opposing viewpoints without committing fully to either one, not because they are indecisive, but because their mind naturally holds complexity. Where others seek certainty, Gemini seeks understanding. This mental flexibility is both a gift and a burden. Gemini can adapt quickly to new environments, ideas, and people. They learn fast, absorb information easily, and often feel mentally younger than their age. But this same adaptability can make Gemini feel unanchored. When your mind can go everywhere, it's easy to feel like you belong nowhere. Gemini often struggles with a subtle sense of restlessness, as if something is always just slightly out of reach. Another key difference lies in how Gemini processes emotions. While some signs feel emotions first and think later, Gemini tends to think about emotions before fully feeling them. This doesn't mean Gemini lacks emotional depth. Quite the opposite. Gemini feels deeply, but the feeling passes through the mind first. Emotions become analyzed, categorized, questioned. Why do I feel this? Does this make sense? Is this logical? This mental filtering can protect Gemini from emotional overwhelm, but it can also delay emotional processing. Because of this, Gemini may appear detached in moments where others expect visible emotion. Internally, however, there is often a storm of thoughts. Gemini may replay conversations, analyze facial expressions, and revisit moments repeatedly, trying to understand not just what happened, but what it meant. This is why Gemini often needs time alone after intense interactions, not because they don't care, but because their mind needs space to organize everything it absorbed. Gemini's mental difference also shows up strongly in relationships. Gemini is mentally stimulated by people before being emotionally attached to them. Conversation, curiosity, humor, shared ideas. These are not extras for Gemini, they are foundations. Without mental stimulation, Gemini feels disconnected, even if emotional attraction exists. This is why Gemini can lose interest quickly when conversations become repetitive or predictable. Their mind craves movement, novelty, and exchange. Yet despite this need for stimulation, Gemini is not shallow. Their depth simply expresses itself differently. Gemini's depth lives in questions rather than answers, in exploration rather than certainty, in understanding rather than control. Gemini may not always dive emotionally in the traditional sense, but they dive mentally in ways that are just as profound. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Gemini's mind is the idea of two sides. People often oversimplify this, assuming Gemini is fake or inconsistent. In reality, Gemini's duality reflects mental range. Gemini can hold joy and sadness, logic and emotion, seriousness and playfulness all at once. They don't switch personalities, they access different parts of themselves depending on context. This adaptability is not deception, it's responsiveness. This mental responsiveness also makes Gemini extremely sensitive to their environment. Energy matters. Tone matters. Atmosphere matters. Gemini absorbs information not just through words, but through subtle cues. This is why Gemini can feel mentally exhausted after social situations, even if they enjoyed them. Their mind was working the entire time, processing far more than what was said out loud. Another important difference is how Gemini relates to time. Gemini lives very much in the present moment of thought. They can think about the future, analyze the past, and respond to the present all at once. This can make them excellent problem solvers and communicators, but it can also make them impatient with stagnation. Gemini struggles in environments that don't allow mental growth or expression. When mentally restricted, Gemini feels trapped. This mental hunger for growth often pushes Gemini toward change, new interests, new projects, new ideas, new phases. From the outside, this can look unstable. From the inside, it feels necessary. Gemini's mind is not built to stay still for too long. Stagnation doesn't just bore Gemini, it drains them. Movement, learning, and mental expansion are how Gemini stays alive. At the same time, Gemini's mind can become its own source of anxiety. Overthinking is common. Mental loops, revisiting conversations, imagining different outcomes. Gemini's imagination is powerful, and when not grounded, it can turn against them. This is why Gemini benefits deeply from practices that slow the mind down, even if they resist them at first. Silence, reflection, journaling, creative expression, these help Gemini organize their inner world. What truly sets Gemini apart mentally is not intelligence alone. It's curiosity combined with awareness. Gemini doesn't just want to know facts. They want to understand patterns, people, systems, meaning. They ask questions not to challenge, but to connect dots. This makes Gemini incredibly perceptive, often noticing truths before others are ready to face them. As we move forward, it becomes clear that Gemini's mental difference is neither a flaw nor something that needs to be fixed. It's a unique way of engaging with reality, but like any powerful tool, it needs understanding and balance. When Gemini learns to work with their mind instead of fighting it, something shifts. The restlessness becomes purpose, the overthinking becomes insight, the curiosity becomes wisdom. And this leads us to the next layer of Gemini's mental world, how this difference shapes their identity, their self-perception, and the inner conflict many Geminis carry quietly. As we go deeper into the mental world of Gemini, one truth becomes unavoidable. Gemini doesn't just think differently, Gemini struggles differently. Much of what defines Gemini mentally is invisible to others. The inner conflict, the constant self-questioning, the sense of carrying multiple versions of reality at once. While other signs may wrestle with emotions or external circumstances, Gemini often wrestles with their own mind. One of the most defining aspects of Gemini's mental difference is self-awareness. Gemini is often painfully aware of their own contradictions. They notice when their thoughts change. They notice when their feelings shift. They notice when they are no longer aligned with something that once made sense. This awareness can be empowering, but it can also be exhausting. Knowing too much about yourself can make it harder to feel settled. Gemini often asks themselves questions others avoid. Am I being authentic, or am I just adapting? Do I really feel this way, or am I convincing myself? Is this connection real, or is it just stimulating? These questions don't always have clear answers, and Gemini doesn't stop asking them just because they're uncomfortable. This is why Gemini can experience periods of inner confusion, even when their outer life seems fine. This internal questioning deeply affects Gemini's sense of identity. Gemini rarely sees themselves as one fixed version of who they are. Instead, identity feels fluid, contextual, evolving. Gemini may feel like a different person at different stages of life, or even in different social environments. This doesn't mean Gemini lacks a core self. It means their core is flexible rather than rigid. They grow through transformation, not consistency. However, this flexibility can create a subtle fear, the fear of being truly known. When your mind has many layers, it's hard to believe that someone could understand all of them. Gemini may share parts of themselves easily, but still feel unseen at a deeper level. They often wonder, consciously or not, which version of me do people actually know? This question can follow Gemini quietly throughout life. Another mental difference lies in how Gemini handles truth. Gemini is naturally drawn to honesty, but not always in a blunt way. They seek accurate understanding. They want nuance, context, explanation. This makes Gemini excellent communicators, but also sensitive to misinterpretation. Being misunderstood mentally can feel deeply frustrating for Gemini, sometimes more painful than emotional rejection. Because of this, Gemini may hold back certain thoughts, especially if they feel others won't grasp the complexity behind them. They may simplify their ideas, joke them away, or keep them private. Over time, this can create a gap between Gemini's inner world and what they express outwardly. The mind becomes rich, but the expression becomes filtered. Gemini's mental difference also shapes how they experience loneliness. Gemini can be surrounded by people and still feel alone if there's no meaningful mental connection. Small talk can feel draining. Repetition can feel isolating. Gemini thrives on exchange, ideas, perspectives, curiosity. Without that, even close relationships can feel distant. This is why Gemini often feels most alive in conversations that flow naturally, where thoughts are shared freely without judgment. At the same time, Gemini needs mental freedom. Feeling mentally confined, controlled, or intellectually underestimated can trigger resistance. Gemini's mind needs room to explore, to question, to evolve. When they feel boxed into expectations, whether by society, relationships, or even their own past choices, they may become restless or withdrawn. This isn't rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It's a need to breathe mentally. One of the most powerful shifts for Gemini happens when they stop seeing their mental restlessness as a weakness. The same mind that jumps between ideas is capable of incredible synthesis. Gemini can connect dots others never notice. They can translate complex ideas into accessible language. They can act as bridges between different perspectives, people, and worlds. When Gemini embraces this role, their mental difference becomes a strength rather than a struggle. But this requires self-trust. Gemini often doubts their own depth because they don't fit traditional definitions of seriousness or stability. They may compare themselves to signs that seem more grounded or emotionally expressive and feel lacking. In reality, Gemini's contribution is different. They bring clarity through understanding, insight through curiosity, and wisdom through observation. Learning to slow down mentally without shutting down is key for Gemini's growth. Practices that allow reflection without suppression help Gemini integrate their thoughts rather than escape them. Writing, speaking, creating, teaching, these are natural outlets for Gemini's mental energy. Expression is not optional for Gemini. It's necessary for balance. As Gemini matures, something beautiful happens. The constant questioning turns into discernment. The mental chaos becomes organized insight. The curiosity becomes purpose. Gemini begins to understand that they don't need to have all the answers to be whole. They learn to sit with uncertainty without anxiety. They realize that changing their mind doesn't mean they were wrong. It means they were growing. Ultimately, what makes Gemini so mentally different is not speed, intelligence, or adaptability alone. It's consciousness. Gemini lives in a state of mental awareness that is both challenging and powerful. They notice life unfolding in real time, in layers, in meaning. When they stop resisting this and start honoring it, they step into their true strength. And if you are Gemini, this difference is not something you need to fix. It's something you need to understand, respect, and guide. Your mind is not here to limit you. It's here to show you the world from angles others may never see. Before we end, take a moment to reflect. How often have you judged yourself for thinking too much, changing too often, or feeling mentally restless? And what if, instead, this was simply the way your soul experiences reality? If this resonated with you, don't forget to support the channel. Like this video, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content made specifically for minds like yours. And if you're Gemini, leave a comment. What part of this felt the most real to you?